So our next speaker is Arty Smith. He is a teacher and coach at Kent Denver School, and today he's going to talk to us about the NBA's pursuit of efficiency. Arty Smith is an award-winning teacher from Kent Denver School. He has taught every level of high school math over his 28-year career and has developed an innovative project-based curriculum that teaches data analytics and visualization to high school seniors. Additionally, he has led the Sun Devils boys soccer team to 5 Colorado State champions, most recently in 2019. All right, really looking forward to this, Arty. I'm going to go ahead and bring you up on stage. Welcome to the DATAcated Conference. Thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me, Kate. I'm really excited to be here today. And as Kate said, I work in the kind of intersection of education and sports analytics. Specifically, I teach a course to seniors that focuses on data visualization and storytelling. And today what I want to do is just share with you guys one of my favorite stories. And this story begins in 1979 when the NBA added the three-point line. And when they added the three-point line, I don't think anybody knew exactly how it would affect the game. And indeed, it's taken us decades to kind of figure out how to play the game of basketball most efficiently. And the data set that I'm going to be using here is over 5 million shots that were taken in the NBA over the last 22 years. Okay, and for each shot, we know who took it. We know whether it went in. We know the type of shot it was, and we also know the location. Okay, and here's one shot that I'm going to share with you guys. This shot was taken by LeBron James on June 20th, 2013. If you're a basketball fan, you probably will remember this shot.
Showing unbelievable emotion here as we wind down Game 7. 14 to shoot for Miami.
And they're not going 2 for 1, it doesn't look like.
James pulls up, puts it in, 4-point lead.
So that's the shot that iced the NBA championship for LeBron James and the Miami Heat in that year. And the next graph I'm going to show you guys is not just one shot, but rather I'm going to add all 5 million shots to the half court here. And what we get is, of course, a mess. All right, but each one of these shots has a story. There's a Steph Curry jump shot from March 18th. But this is overwhelming, okay? And somehow we need to make sense of this data. And the next graph that I'm going to show you guys looks at the success rate of players shooting as a function of their distance. Now, we would expect that when you're close to the basket, your probability of success is high. And the further away from the basket you get, the lower your probability of success should be. But my question to you guys is, do you expect it to be linear? Now, we can easily get an answer to that question. Again, I've got distance on the x-axis here and shooting percentage on the y-axis. And what we can see is that when players are very close to the basket, so here at 0 feet, they make 64% of their shots. At 1 feet, it drops to 63.7%, 2 feet, okay, and 3 feet. Now, what's really surprising here, I think, is that as we go from 3 feet to 10 feet, and even all the way out to 22 feet, the probability of making a basket doesn't change much. It's just a tick below 40%. And that is really surprising. And I think it's very counterintuitive. And I think it has taken teams a long, long time to adjust to this fact. Now, once we get to 23 feet, 24 feet, we can see that shooting percentage tends to fall off kind of as we would suspect. Now, there's a lurking variable in here, of course, and the lurking variable is that not all shots are worth the same amount of points. Okay, some of these shots are worth 2 points, others are worth 3 points. So the next graph that I'm going to show you guys will take that into account. Okay, and rather than looking at shooting percentage on the vertical axis, we're going to look at the average points per shot. So we can see at 0 feet, shots are worth about 1.3 points on average. At 2 feet, it drops to about 1.09. And then from 3 feet all the way on up to 21 feet, shots are worth about 0.79, 0.8 points per shot. After that, though, we see a big increase. Now, these shots, of course, are worth 3 points. All right. And it leads to this kind of surprising realization that if teams can't get a shot from very close to the basket, 0 feet, 1 feet, maybe 2 feet, well, they're probably better off taking a three-pointer. And it's taken teams a long, long time to make this adjustment. This graph shows exactly that. A time series plot starting in 1997 up through 2020. And what we can see here, the orange graph is showing us the percentage of all shots in the league in a given year that were three-pointers. In 1997, only 15% of shots were three-pointers. We can see that that has risen all the way up to about 39%. Now, when that change really began was here in 2007. And in 2007, the Houston Rockets hired Daryl Morey to be their general manager. Daryl Morey is a self-proclaimed nerd out of MIT and a big proponent of analytics. In fact, Daryl Morey is the one who started the Sloan Sports Analytics Conference that is held in Boston every year. Okay. And as, of course, the percentage of shots that were threes has increased, the percentage of shots that were twos have decreased. Now, we could be more specific. We could break it down into some subcategories. And indeed, I want to do that now. It turns out that some three-pointers are actually more valuable than others. Let's take a look at the court here. And we can see that the three-point line is part of a circle here, an arc of a circle, but it flattens out on the two wings, on the two sides. Okay. More specifically, the distance from right here, from the left wing to the basket is 22 feet, same on the right side, but the distance out to the arc is 23 feet, 9 inches. So these three-pointers from the corners are closer to the basket than three-pointers above the arc. And we can see the data tells us that indeed shooting three-pointers from the corners are more valuable than shooting three-pointers from above the break. And indeed, this has informed a lot of NBA teams' strategies. All right, a lot of teams now will position players out on the left corner or the right corner and try to get them open looks at the basket. Now, of course, that's easier said than done, and it helps to have somebody who can draw the defense into the middle and then kick the ball out. And of course, nobody is better at that than LeBron James. Okay, now this has changed the game over time, and I want to show you visually a couple ways how that's happened. And this is the shot map from 1980, 1998, and 1999. Again, it's messy. There's too many shots here. We can't really make any rhyme or reason from this. So I'm not going to use a scatter plot. Rather, I'm going to switch to a density plot. Sometimes we call it a heat map. And this next graph is going to show us where the shots were most dense, okay, where shots were taken from most frequently. It'll cut through the clutter, if you will. And the densest areas are going to appear to be the brightest. So this is the 1998-1999 season. Okay, and we can see most shots were happening under the basket. Okay, not a surprise there. Okay, a fair amount mid-range jumpers from the right wing and from the left wing. But other than that, it was a fairly uniform distribution. People were shooting kind of from all over. Maybe not a ton from right inside of the three-point line, right? It's kind of a dark area there. And that makes sense, right? Generally speaking, you'd be better off taking it one step back and taking a shot that's worth 3 rather than 2. But I would say overall a fairly uniform distribution here. This is 1998, 99. This is before the NBA really started to play more efficient basketball. My next graph, I'm going to compare this season, 98-99, to a more recent season, to the 2019-2020 season. I'm going to put them side by side, and I think that when you guys see this, you're going to see how the game of basketball has changed over the years. On the left, we see the old NBA. On the right, we see the new NBA, the efficient NBA. Okay, and on the right, we see that if teams can't get a shot from underneath the basket, well, they're very likely to take a three-point shot. Okay, and even more specifically, we can see that the mid-range jump shot has kind of disappeared. All right, the game of basketball has changed because of data analysis. Now, not only has it changed the shot distribution for the league, but I also want to show you an example of how it's changed individual play. Okay, and in my next graph, we're going to compare two scoring champions. We're going to look at Carmelo Anthony versus James Harden. On the left, we have Carmelo Anthony, who won the scoring championship in 2012-2013 with 1,764 points. Okay, and we look at his shot map down here, bottom left. Each green dot is a successful shot. Each red dot was a miss. And if we compare Carmelo to James Harden on the right, the shot maps look very different. Okay, James Harden in the 2017-2018 season scored a little over 1,900 points. And when we look at his shot map, it looks very different than Carmelo's. Okay, James Harden was a much more efficient player. He took shots underneath the basket. If he couldn't get those, he was going to take shots from three-point land. All right, and indeed, when we compare their efficiencies, okay, points per shot, Carmelo averaged 0.98 points per shot, whereas James Harden was at 1.05 points per shot. He was a much more efficient player. I've heard it said that Carmelo Anthony was the best player in the league at those mid-range jumpers. He could create his own mid-range jumpers. He was really good at making them. But unfortunately, over the next several years, the demand for mid-range jump shooters really fell, okay? There was less demand for people who had Carmelo's skill set. In essence, he was really good at something that turns out wasn't that efficient, okay? Now, a lot of basketball fans argue that this has hurt the game of basketball. I've got a quick quote from Coach Popovich from the San Antonio Spurs. I'll give you a second to read it. So the game has changed, for better, for worse. Some people think we should move the three-point line to bring kind of more balance back to the game. And I'm no expert on basketball, but I think it's an interesting idea. A few quick thank yous. Thank you to Data World for the data. Thank you to Kirk Goldsberry for the inspiration on this talk. And of course, a special thank you to Kate from DATAcated for giving me the platform. So thank you guys very much.
Absolutely, Arty. That was a great presentation. Thank you so much. I especially love that video clip that you included. Super creative. I love that. And I love data visualization and Tableau. So it was great to see all those visuals come together. You have a lot of great feedback coming your way in terms of the use of the heat maps and the way you visually represented all of that. But we do have time for one question. We'll go ahead and jump into that from Elise. She's asking, are outliers included in your assessment? For example, players taking a shot while they're sick or injured, or rather, is there a variable that accounts for the level of defense applied while attempting the shot?
That's a great question. No, I did not control for any of those things. It would be I'd need a richer data set to look at how closely the players were being defended, and indeed, if teams are now keeping that data, the tracking data would give us a better look at how close the nearest defender was to these shooters. But that data is proprietary, and the teams have that, but they're not sharing it with people like me, unfortunately. But those are all valid things to look into, and certainly I could have filtered out kind of last second shots, maybe that were taken as the shot clock was expiring or as the quarter or half were expiring. I could get rid of some of those, which would probably get rid of some of the noise and maybe give us a better look.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Arty, thank you again so much for your time, and thank you for helping us close out the sports industry. I will see you online if you want to have time. You can go hop in and answer some of those questions that have come in on LinkedIn.
Will do. Thank you, Kate.
Okay, thank you.